Hello, hello, hello. I am at the other house. I'm going to make a foot massage video with the self-mixed herbal spray, which is also a mosquito repellent at the same time. Sweaty. Sweaty. Always sweaty. Sweaty. Feels good. Really good. And refreshing. The sun is going down and the last sunbeams of love are coming through the trees and it feels really good. I'll show you. There's the sunbeams of love going down to my shoes. That feels so good. And that poor dog down there says, "Help me please," all day long. "Help me please. Help me please. Help me please." And I think that's the second one he has. Oh man, this makes Mama sad and worried. It's all sad. Infinitely sad. That poor, poor dog. I want to go down there, but then I get shot. So I can't do that. This is all infinitely sad. What I really need is I need to have a badge. And I need to... It's like animal control badge or something like that. And then they all respect it. Because they don't want to get in trouble. That's how it always is, usually. And then there are some people that shoot authority people too. So that's like those areas, that's not safe for police or any kind of patrol person. And those areas, they need to have robots go in. They need to have the robot dogs from Boston Dynamics go in there, and they need to straighten things out. Yes, they do. They need to rescue all the animals. They need to have a robot militia raiding certain areas and the dangerous areas and rescuing all the animals. That's what needs to happen. That is what needs to happen. I don't know what else to do. You need to do this here. You need to go into your toes like that. And you need to bend the toes over like that. Feels really, really good. I've been thinking about dating interactions and not just my own but also other women's dating interactions. And what I observe a lot of stuff, okay? And every time a woman cannot be controlled by men, there's a whole lot of biochemistry happening inside of the men when that happens. I mean, there's so much going on. I couldn't put this into one video. So, but I'm just gonna talk about the basic things that are happening, the most basic things that are happening in, let's just take one man now. Well, that's applies to all the guys that are, I don't know, applies to most men in the world. Most straight men, that is, not the gay men are kind of like outside of that spectrum because they don't need to control a woman. And guess what happens a lot of times? Where does she go with her pain and sorrow? She goes to her male friend who is reasonable, and that usually is her gay or bisexual male friend who she is just friends with, or has just a very loose relationship with. That's the person she goes to, and she says, "Oh man, I was bullied again. They hurt me, they hurt my feelings, they made me feel ugly and old, and oh man, that's terrible, they called me fossil." And so she goes to the gay guy and he listens, he doesn't judge, he doesn't want anything from her specifically, I mean, once in a while they may have sex, that could happen, but he's not attached to her because he really likes to party with men and his brain is much more female, so, and in some cases completely female, and that's when when they don't feel good about who they are. So, but it's already like really rough on people who are anything from, usually not the bisexual people, they are respected by society, but gay people and trans, those are still not respected enough by society, and I feel terrible for them. But the women go to those, and they cry on their shoulders because they listen to them and they don't judge them. They don't look at them non-stop as a sex object and as a threat to their egos. So, and looking at it from the sky perspective, I don't judge. I'm not going to judge because I see the whole picture, So, and once we understand the biochemistry inside of the men, the straight men, then maybe we can understand them a little bit better, and we can say, okay, I didn't know that, I didn't know that that's what's going on inside of them, the fear and all of this. There was one guy who was, I don't know, I forgot now exactly what, I think it was under the Jordan Peterson video. I left an angry comment. And I said, I just don't understand. Man, help me out, please, with this. So a guy from England came, and I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, I lost his comment. It got jumbled up. I wanted to respond, but then it got all jumbled up because I switched accounts and stuff like this, and I couldn't find it anymore. But I've already talked about this in another video before. But I want to talk about it more from the sky perspective now. So what that guy, he honestly tried to explain what's happening in him, and he obviously concludes that this must be happening in all the other straight men as well, or most of them. And he said that this is what's happening when a man, and he used the word fancy, and that's why I know he's from England, because I don't think the other guys are using this word. So he said when he fancies a woman, then the fear of approaching her becomes absolutely exponentialized. And that makes it so much harder for him to go up to a woman and introduce himself and say, hey, I want to get to know you, I like you. So I understand, it's hard for me to understand it really from my own personal psychology, but I understand it from the sky perspective. And I believe him totally, what he said about this. When he really wants a woman so badly that it becomes painful, and then he becomes so afraid of going up to her. And that's why he didn't talk about troll accounts. I guess he was too embarrassed to talk about that, but I can clearly see that's why men create these troll or sock accounts where they then, they basically completely disguise themselves and then go up to a woman. Like, it feels safer then, because then they don't have to take that risk of getting rejected. It's not gonna hurt as much, particularly, and I was thinking about this the other day, particularly when they are coming up to a woman in a trollish behavior, basically in a bullying type of behavior, because when they get rejected, then they feel like, oh yeah, well, that's why I was rejected, because of my bullying behavior. And this goes very deep into psychology. This goes very, very deep into the therapy process that I am doing with myself and that I am proposing to the world, the inwardness meditation process. Because what happens is, this, you can already see that in children, when a child becomes antsy and with ADHD and does things that they know that this is not accepted by society or something. Let's say a 5-year-old child, then it's a psychological mechanism. It's an automated mechanism, where they feel like, and it's completely unconscious. If I misbehave, then I'm being rejected or mistreated because I misbehaved, and not because of who I am. And because this feeling of I am rejected just for being me, for being myself, for being a nice, harmless, regular living being, child of the mother, and the mother rejects me just for being me. That pain is absolutely unbearable. Okay, it's unbearable pain. And I really dug deep into this. So I'm sure that applies to myself when I was a child. I'm sure that all of this applies. So, but I was never really capable of doing a bunch of external act outs like that, because my brain is not really capable of doing a whole lot of denial. So that happens more in a brain that goes into the denial direction. And denial can take on many different forms, very intense forms actually. There are intense forms of denial happening in people. It can be anything from just having selective memory, to severe denial where people they'll just kid themselves, with they kid themselves with certain beliefs. Religion is part of that. And I'm gonna sit more comfortably here, like okay. So with religion is a mental illness. It is severe denial. Okay, I'm gonna have to do like this. The sun is going down. It's getting kind of dark now. So, but that's one form of denial, is religion, and that can go all the way into split personalities. Okay, DID, dissociative personality, dissociative identity disorder, DID, dissociative identity disorder. Okay. So multiple personalities. So that's the official psychiatric terminology that they use now today. Okay. And because people dissociate into different characters, into different personalities. And this is actually an ability. It's an ability like intelligence. The brain is capable of doing this. It's a severe form of denial. Okay. This thing is usually unconscious, but because people have been talking about this because more and more people are talking about it to their psychiatrists and psychologists, and then through this talking process they become more conscious about it, and then more and more people talk about it, and then other people will reflect into themselves and recognize these kind of mechanisms in themselves, and then they start talking about it. And I don't know if everyone who talks about this on the internet is actually having that, because it's starting to become like a fad for some people. Becomes like this is very counterproductive when people make a fad out of something like this. But there are attention seeker people, and they really have a different disorder that's called histrionic personality disorder, and they will mimic other people's disorders in order to be seen, in order to be noticed, in order to be liked and found interesting, and so on. That can be also very severe, histrionic. So histrionic can range from anything from just being like a show kind of girl or boy to taking on other people's personalities or taking on other people's disorders. So and to some degree even believing it. So that can happen too. They're also very good with denial, those type of people. Usually, when people have plastic surgery done, that's severe denial. That's a lie to themselves. How can someone exist like this with that kind of self-lie? I mean, it's okay to pluck your eyebrows and do your hair and all of that. Still your body the way it is, right? So, yeah, my eyebrows are a little bit more fanned out and it looks dorky. And I mean, there's a certain range of. I'll still put this into the range of cosmetics and putting nail polish on and wearing whatever cute clothes or something. But at some point, it becomes, when surgery gets into this picture, then it gets out of that range of cosmetic, of just decorating oneself. Then it goes into the range of self-lies. Okay. Surgeries, plastic surgery is a self-lie. Okay. It is the truth. Okay. So that can range from anything from, like, if someone has a deformed nose and they want to straighten that nose, it's still a self-lie, when they have the nose straightened out. But, if someone has something that is completely deformed or through an accident, or also particularly, then then I'll say, okay, that's still within the range of tolerance, somewhat. I don't know. I have never been in that situation, and I don't know how bad it must be, but I had BDD when I was 13, It was very severe, very, very, that lasted for about a year, like, really intensive stuff, like where I actually wanted to cut a piece of like this much out of my leg. I mean, it's that extreme, But of course, I would never do this, and I also knew that would be a self lie. But I was growing at that time, and I was so mentally ill that I didn't want to become an adult. I wanted to stay a little baby, I mean, it was very, very intense for me because my body was growing very, very fast. My boobs were growing very, very fast, and that caused the skin to tear also. And in my head, I was still like other kids are at age 10 in the brain, And the body becoming an adult very, very soon, and the brain still being a child. That was very frightening for me, So out of that grew a body dysmorphic disorder. But it didn't last that long. It didn't last a lifetime. So it was only for like a year. It was very intense though. But I used artwork to paint all of that out, to paint all of these fears out. I've always done it. I started painting this stuff, my pain, out at age 2 already. So in very abstract form. And that's a lifesaver to do painting. My dad encouraged me with this, and I am infinitely grateful to him for that. But when people are adults and they want to lie to themselves and they see, like other women in show business or whatever, and they want to look like them, and they make themselves look like them with whatever, and that's when it becomes a real self-lie. So that's when it becomes self-deception, self-lie, and that's absolute horror for the brain. That's misery. That's a miserable state to be in, okay? Because the underlying feelings have never been dealt with, okay? people just run off with plastic surgery, then it becomes body dysmorphic disorder to the fullest degree, where they are always miserable about it. And there was one woman, I guess everyone knows that story, the real estate lady from LA, who was extremely beautiful before she had any surgeries done. Really beautiful, but she thought she was ugly. The pain, the childhood trauma has never been addressed, okay? So instead she runs to the plastic surgeons over and over and over, cutting her face open until the ones in the United States said, no more, we want nothing to do with that. You're going to end up being deformed, okay, if they open her face up again. So what did she do? She'd go to other countries, and they don't care at all. They just want the money. And then she started to look like really like monstrous, like someone who's trying to look like a cat, like a puffed up scar tissue cat type of face. And I feel so infinitely sorry for her, because nobody ever helped her with the psychological issues that are underneath. Okay. And, Michael Jackson had BDD, body dysmorphic disorder. They go under the knife over and over and over again. They hate themselves. There's an emotional problem behind it, okay, that has never been addressed. Okay, and his sisters, he drew them into this kind of as well. So it's very sad. This is very, very, very sad, infinitely sad, because there's emotional pain underneath, and that needs to get addressed. Okay. Until we do this, people will be confused. They will run away from stuff. But really, that's a real horrible, self-mutilating mental illness. Okay, and also declare drug addiction, mental illness, and alcoholism. That's also ultimately mental illness, of course. It's mental illness based, all of that. So, but the dissociative identity disorder, where people are in so much denial that they split off into different personalities, that's very, very severe denial, and it is a form of coping mechanism. They call it a coping mechanism, particularly when kids have been physically abused and violated and tortured, particularly. That's when that kind of stuff develops. That's very intense. Not everyone has that ability, that coping ability. That coping ability can make these people survive those kind of traumas that happen during childhood, because they really split off into a different personality. And I read books on that. It's very interesting. It's fascinating. I don't have that ability at all. I don't have any ability of denial. My mother has very severe denial, and it borders DID. She has 2 personalities. Okay, and I think a lot of people have that, but it has not been talked about very much. So I've heard that a lot now from other people, from stories on YouTube. It's very interesting, where a mother would be on the outside, with friends and meeting other people, be the sweetest person in the world. And then she closes the door, and inside of her house, she psychologically and even physically often abuses her daughter. It's usually the daughter, Like, for example, Münchhausen syndrome by proxy. That's a very severe case of this. And there was a woman who, they made a movie out of that. I forgot now the title of the movie, but The movie was about this lady. What was her name? Weird name. Blanchett was the last name. And Munchausen by proxy, that's when people are, it's also called factitious disorder. That's when people are making their children sick in order to get attention from hospitals and physicians. And also the public. In this case, it became so extreme because she was basically rewarded by journalists and like so much public attention for her daughter that she was doing fundraising, making her daughter look like she had severe illnesses. I don't even want to say the word, when in fact the daughter didn't have it. And so the reason why this whole thing blew up all the way to complete, like where it was made into a film and everyone talked about it, is because what happened is the daughter found a boyfriend on the internet who came there to rescue her from her mother and who killed the mother. And so then it became a murder case. And I have not watched the movie, but I think the movie was made in her defense, in the defense of that girl. I think Gypsy is her name. Gypsy Rose, I think, is her name. And because we have to look at it from the Sky perspective, of course. She didn't murder her mother, but she led on to this, She basically hired someone to murder her mother. But she said she still felt sorry for her mother, but she felt like she had no other choice. That was her only choice to get out of there, because she had already tried to escape, but it didn't work. People saw her and then notified the mother, and she rushed over there and brought her back home. That girl could walk, but the mother put her into a wheelchair. The mother had horrific medical procedures done on the girl that were never needed, that actually caused her problems, internal organ damage and all kinds of problems. Unbelievable. It's monstrous what this Munchausen by proxy illness, how far that goes in some people, this need for attention, this need for praise, the need for being seen. I mean, when the underlying emotional pain is not addressed and people are unconscious and these things are never talked about, then those monstrosities develop out of it. Okay. And I hold religion accountable for this to a large part, okay, because religion keeps people completely uninformed about psychology, biology, all of these things that people should be informed about. We need to take our health into our own hands. In order to do that, we have to be more informed about our own mechanisms that are happening. I am very well informed about my own mechanisms. I pay very close attention to what's happening, to the point where, I become my own observer. I observe. I'm still also the observed. I'm the observer and the observed. But I become more conscious in this process. Okay. As the observed by myself. So now I'm becoming sort of like, that also goes into two, but more from the head, more from the intellect, from the prefrontal cortex, not through denial, but through complete consciousness. That's what we want. We want to become our own observers. I think this is absolutely vitally important. because then we can make progress forward. Then we don't have to be so confused anymore about our biology and psychology. Then we don't have to be so completely, utterly in the dark, in total, like, total ignorance, that people are in because of religious indoctrination from childhood through schools and so on. Religious indoctrination keeps people really deliberately unconscious about their own healing process. And the medical industry is guilty for that. They are part of this. This is a bigger plot, okay? And then people say, yeah, that's conspiracy. No, that's the real money conspiracy, okay? It goes that far. You have no idea how far greed can go. That can also take on really monstrous forms, okay? And it does, okay? It goes so far that I heard that in the 60s, the medical industry has completely, that's a collaboration with the government, with politicians, with the pharma industry to systematically keep people uninformed, to basically take over the medical science that is being taught in schools and universities and colleges. So they hawked that onto themselves. They monopolized it. They made some kind of agreement with politicians that only pharma medicine can be taught, and that learning about our biology has to stay within this framework of pharma-based, So, and I see this. This is real scary. I mean, I see this also in Germany to some degree, which is really scary, although in Germany they have homeopathy now included in the medical studies and natural medicine, so much more included into it. Not in the United States, because it's basically corporate owned, okay? And they are also completely in with this, they are in it with this conspiracy of keeping people ignorant. They want to keep people ignorant because as long as people are ignorant about their own mechanisms, they're not going to ask any questions. They're just going to run to the psychiatrist, who then gets kickback money for prescribing pharmaceutical drugs. Okay. I've been a victim of this myself. It was very difficult to get off all of this. But I was encouraged. I just knew I had to go. I don't know. I listened to my inner voice, and then I found Dr. Richard Schultz through a massage therapist girl. Interesting, massage therapist girl from France told me that, not someone from the United States. And I'm very grateful to her for telling me about Dr. Schultz. She said she got off the pharma medication through his herbs. And so that's what I did. It was very difficult and very discouraging. A lot of people will probably somehow at some point say, no, this is too difficult, I'm going to go back to the pharma. That happened to me one time, but the second time around, I knew this time I'm not gonna revert back. Okay, this time I'm going to tough this out. And I did, and it was very hard. I was like struggling. It was a psychotic type of OCD that was extremely, extremely difficult. And once in a while, I still get pretty bad OCD moments. Okay, but my conscious awareness can look down on that and say, you know what that is. This is OCD. That's just a desperate attempt to get some kind of control over your fears, basically, I want to control my fears by hand washing, by doing praying, by this could be my own self-invented religion, but it's mental illness. As all religion is mental illness. We need to become very consciously aware about it. Okay? Whether you have inherited this or learned this from someone else, it is mental illness that your brain then uses as mental illness. Okay? So whether that's your own religion or someone else's religion or an acceptable religion or a respected by society religion, it doesn't matter, it's mental illness. Okay? We have to become aware about this. This is very important. So in regards to the dating situation, I see this, there is a lot of denial going on and a lot of unconsciousness happening in men. And I want to shine the light onto it, not in order to expose you, but in order to give you information, vital information. I want to empower you. I want to tell you, you can heal this. You can become your own observer. When you become your own, it becomes 1,000 times more difficult to do this if you intoxicate your brain. Okay, that's the truth. You got to get sober, man. You have to. You have no other choice. Okay, and then become consciously aware. It's not easy. Okay, but when someone is on drugs or alcohol, that is 1,000,000 times more painful and lonely and isolating and torturous. Okay, get out of that. Not necessarily through these AA meetings that are based on religion again. Like, let me take the bottle away from you, but here's Jesus. Okay, no, that's just replacing one thing with another terrible thing. That's not helping anyone. You can clearly see this. That makes people crazy. They start preaching on the internet Jesus and damnation and stuff. And then they're really isolated often. And they can't find a girlfriend because they're fanatically religious, and most women don't want that unless they're fanatically religious themselves, and then they just make each other more and more crazy. That's horrible, absolutely horrible. So what you have to do is, Jiddu Krishnamurti helps a lot with this. That's not religion. Gautama Buddha is not religion. There are religions that have hijacked Gautama Buddha, his philosophy. Don't go with religion. Go with the good teachers, Gautama Buddha, the original teachings, Jiddu Krishnamurti. He's basically bringing us these teachings in a more modernized form. I'm trying to bring it in a yet more modernized form because he had a lot of older words. So he died in, I believe it was 1986, something like this. So, and he was born in 1895. So that's someone from the past for today's standards, with past language and past attempts to try to explain all of this with overly politeness and with overly care on not hurting other people's feelings and being extra gentlemanly and all of these things that are really kind of like standing in the way today in getting people to look at the picture, really look at that picture. And I'm not that polite when it comes to truth. I say it the way it is. Just say it, look at it for what it is. Don't wrap it into something polite. It's not necessary, okay? The ego is a self-deception mechanism. Okay? It doesn't move the world forward. So we have to really question it, and we have to look at the facts and truth the way it is. How is your biology? How is the women's biology? Okay. If you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a man, and if you're a straight man and you are unconscious, then you need to become conscious. You need to quit all the substances. You need to become conscious about your own psychology. You need to get into a real dialogue with the women, okay? And listen to what they have to say to you. When they say, this hurt my feelings, listen to that, okay? If you want to become involved with a woman, okay, listen to her. Don't infantilize her in front of yourself or her or the world. Don't grandstand to make yourself look good in front of other people or the man cave and so on. Forget about the man cave. Okay? This is about communication. Okay? Get rid of sexism and speciesism. Okay? The Dalai Lama is guilty of that. That's why I'm highly critical of religious figures and religion, because they make the world worse. Okay? This is a fact, okay? Let's look at it really from the sky perspective. And then get into a dialogue with people and talk to them and begin to trust. I know it's not easy, I can see more now what men are going through, and I think they're going through a lot because of ego and of fear of being humiliated and so on. Fear of being rejected. But you, at this point, when you don't go up to the woman, you're rejecting yourself. You're rejecting your own biology, because your body wants a specific woman. Okay, your body wants that, but your ego says no, she is unacceptable, or they're gonna laugh about me if I talk to her publicly, and so on. How do you think that makes her feel? That makes her feel, that ties right into her pain from childhood. Okay, so you see that if you act out your pain, you hurt someone else with their pain. We want to heal our pain, okay, and we want to dissolve this pride and the shame and all of that. And want to do that inwardness meditation process and start talking to other people about it. Start talking to women about how you feel. They will really appreciate this, okay? And then the healing process can begin, and they can start talking about their problems instead of lashing back. And I see a lot of women that are then going into reverse and just heading back blindly. That's not going to work. That's not going to help. Militant feminism. That's war. That's not going to help. Okay, we need to get into a dialogue with each other and start healing our emotional problems. You guys take care. Bye-bye.